Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Bum with a Wrench. I'm your host Daniel as always, and this is finally the 1968 Chevy Camaro with a LS Swap. I was, like I explained in the last video that I just finished up and just edited and just pushed out to the YouTube, that I got a little bit excited when I got the Galaxy off the hoist and wanted to get the Camaro on. I kind of forgot, I'm hosting a TV show or a YouTube channel, and just kind of immediately just dug into the car. I really love this car, and I want to get it back on the road. And so I got a little bit ahead of myself and already started working on the car. It's racked up. I got the transmission out of it, which I'll show you here in a second. And then I'll lift the car up and I'll give you kind of a tour underneath of this car, in the direction we're going to go and how things are going to happen. So basically the background story on this car, in case you don't really know, is we purchased this car for a substantial amount of money. And it showed up with the motor bad, basically. It took us weeks to figure it out, but long story short, it had a ZZ430 in it, which we believe to be as a clone. We haven't confirmed that yet, but one thing we found with the ZZ430s is that they were all serial numbered. This one doesn't have serial numbers on it. However, the parts that we can see all look completely correct to the ZZ430. So, and that was the motor that I was going to put into the Galaxy. However, when we were tuning the car, it would overheat, it wouldn't tune, it couldn't keep it in tune. We fought it. Finally came to find out that I believe it was number 6 cylinder has a crack across the valve reliefs in the piston, and it looked like a screwdriver mark actually dinged the top of the piston. Something that can happen if you're going to do like a leak down test and you're trying to get that cylinder up on a top dead center. So you'll stick something down the hole and then twist the motor until you can feel that rock over point in the piston. I know with that one cylinder that it was on, because of the header setup, it was really kind of hard to get the spark plug in, and I could really see maybe if someone stuck a screwdriver in there and wasn't really holding onto it and just kind of turning the motor and watching it go up, it would jam itself and then ding the piston. Well, you ding the piston like that, it's gonna crack. Now the owner, he decided, once we found out what was wrong with it, that immediately he's like, I want fuel injection. I want to put an LS in it. Which I thought was a pretty cool move. I'm not a big LS guy, but I think for this car, I think it's going to be a lot of fun because of just how the car actually is. And when you get underneath, I think you'll kind of understand what I mean by that. It's not your typical 1968 Chevy Camaro. This thing had a lot of work done to it. It is very, very nice. And I think it's fitting to have a motor of this caliber in the car. Not that there's anything wrong with the ZZ430 or the old carbureted pushrod motors. This is still pushrod too, but the older 350s, nothing wrong with that. This is just modern. And when we get up underneath the car, you'll see how fitting it actually is for this car. Now we did put the motor and the trans in the car to fit it. However, the LS and the small block, they fit in the car a little bit differently. The LS is about, a quarter of an inch away from the firewall, way too close. There's vacuum lines, there's electrical, there's all kinds of stuff that needs to go at the back of the car right there. And then putting the transmission in and pulling it out, it's actually so close to the firewall that you can't even get to the bolts. You really have to do this whole manipulation of bell housing and transmission and everything just to get the whole thing out. It's just too close. It's not right. So a couple things. I need to pull the motor to change the intake manifold when I ordered this motor. So this is a custom built LS3 from Texas Speed Performance. So it makes good horsepower. It makes quite a bit of horsepower actually. So one of the things I did when I ordered this, I ordered it with the hot rod oil pan because I wasn't sure which oil pan I was going to need or use. So I figured I asked them, well, which oil pan's free? Hot rod oil pan. Okay, put the hot rod oil pan on it, knowing that I was probably going to change the oil pan. And then also I just went with the, no priced upgrade, that kind of stuff. Just the free intake manifold that it came with, which is just your standard. You'd find that on a Chevy Camaro. And there's really nothing wrong with that manifold, the intake manifold. However, I went to a Holley, I think they call it a medium rise manifold, that we had some custom work and stuff done to it. Looks really cool. So I needed to get that LS out. I needed to flip it over, change the oil pan, which I ordered the new oil pan from Holley. That's sitting over here off to the side. That should be quick, easy. It's got a pickup tube. It's got, all the things to fit it. So we'll get that on the motor. I'm gonna put the bottom half of the intake manifold on the engine because I figured it'd be easier to do with it out of the car. And then we'll drop the engine back in the car, mount the transmission back up to it. So the transmission it's got in it right now, or has going back into it right now, is this Tremec 5-speed. So these transmissions are good to about 500 horsepower. They're a great transmission for just kind of stock replacement. There's really nothing wrong with them. It would do probably okay in this car, but I am confident that this transmission's gonna blow up. So rather than ruining a brand new transmission or a newer transmission, I'm gonna go ahead and switch it out to a 6-speed, which I think the 6 speeds are good to about 800 horsepower, which will handle that LS3 just fine. So, but I'm not gonna do that until we put that Art Morrison independent rear suspension in the car. But I'm not going to put that Art Morrison independent rear suspension in the car until I get the car running and driving. So the plan right now, get the motor in, get it running with the transmission that it has and the drive shaft that it has. It's got a Ford 9-inch in the back. Take it out, shake it down, make sure everything operates, runs and drives great. There's no problems with anything. Once I've really shook the car down and make sure everything is nice and straight and flawless, then I can go ahead and jump into something as big as putting that independent rear suspension in. At that time, I'll go ahead and put a 6-speed in it because I don't want to play the drive shaft game like I was talking about. If I put a 6-speed in it now, odds are I'm gonna have to change the drive shaft, which I'm gonna have to change drive shaft anyways. So make one drive shaft, not 15. So you'll see I got a little bit of cardboard up here. That's basically just stuff between the firewall and the back of the cylinder head because when we took the transmission out, the motor wants to come back and hit the firewall. Don't want those two grinding together, so stuck a little cardboard in there just to kind of hold it up. Let me lift this thing up and give you a tour underneath of it. Welcome to the underside of this car. So it's got a custom cradle. I'm not sure exactly who the manufacturer of the cradle is. I have all of the stuff on this car, basically what cradle it's in, all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I'd have to look it up, go back into the folder on this car to see what it is, but look at this car. I'm pretty sure the floors have been replaced, but that's okay. The work that was actually done to this car is just, somebody spent a lot of time, There was a lot of love put into this car. Like I said, Ford 9-inch. That third member is probably going to go into, that third member is going to go into the Galaxy. I can't remember what gear is in it, but it's definitely a nice one. You can see the exhaust on this car is actually 3-inch. It comes out right there by the spring. Obviously I have the exhaust out of the car right now. Again, I do apologize for not filming. When I got this thing up, I was pretty excited to get this thing going. So I had to slow it down. But you'll notice it's got subframe connectors all the way up to the cradle there in the front. These subframe connectors are welded onto the body, so these aren't going anywhere. Obviously, it's going to unbolt here to release off the cradle because you want to be able to remove that front subframe from the car. So this car is so nice. I'm telling you, when we test drove it before we bought it, it was the nicest driving classic car I've ever driven. This thing drove and felt like a brand new car. Absolutely gorgeous car too. The color on this car, hate the wheels, Boyd Coddington, horrible wheels. Oh, this one actually has a valve stem on it. Well, what they have is they have these little, see right there? It's like a plug, and then you have to put this adapter on it. It's probably only on the front because of the calipers maybe, I don't know. But you have to put this adapter on it to be able to put air in the tires. They're horrible, they look horrible. It's not very fitting for the car. This car really screams track car with everything that it's got. Honestly, when we're done putting that Art Morrison rear suspension into it, this is going to be every bit of a track car. This thing should perform so well. For a unibody car to have this nice custom front cradle, subframe connectors all the way here to the back, and then basically from at this point back is going to be the frame from there. So in the end, this is going to be a full framed, non-removable frame, but full framed 1968 Chevy Camaro. Gorgeous. Everything under here. I like looking at the underside of this car more than I like looking at the top of the car, just because of how nice it actually is. So the clutch and all that kind of stuff is brand new in this car. We ordered all of that per the horsepower that it makes. I believe this motor was 600 horsepower at the crank. So it's going to do pretty well. It came with all of the accessory drive on it. So yeah, and then you can see how close that engine actually is to the firewall. Now it is leaned back a little bit. Normally it's got maybe, an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch away from the firewall, but that's too close. You can't have that. Way too close. I got wires that are supposed to go back there. Like I said, I have vacuum lines and stuff that need to run in that area. So I need to get that out. And then when we go back in, so this is the trans brace that was in the car. And you can see it's got some slots there so you can adjust. Even with the setup that it was all the way at the end of the adjustment. However, on the subframe connectors, what I discovered was it was bolted here, and it has these 2 other holes, so I can actually shift it, and then these measured out to about 1.5 inches of movement, center point to center point. So this is going to move perfect, and then the motor mounts are adjustable as well. So this whole assembly can slide forward. Right now they're almost at their all the way back location, so I have tons of room to move forward. I have, obviously this oil pan is going to change. The new one is a little bit longer this way, but I still have plenty of room. I only need to get about an inch out of it. I'd like an inch and a half, but I need to see how it's going to feel out, feel it out, see how it's going to actually move, and then how everything is going to want to sit. It'll tell you where it wants to be. Right now, you could make it work. I totally see it hitting stuff, and it would be a pain to wire that motor with all of this, because you remember this is all modern. It's got sensors everywhere. Everywhere there's sensors on this car. So, I gotta do all of that, and there's just no room for it. So I have to modify some of the harness that it has, and it's going to be a lot of wiring. Really, that's what this project is going to be. The motor I already have, the transmission I already have. I'm hoping by the end of the day. No, I'm hoping by Monday. I'm not going to say end of the day, because this car is slow going. You do things slowly. I'm going to be here Saturday and Sunday this weekend. Today's Saturday. I'm hoping by Monday I can have the motor and trans back in the car, locked down into its final position, and then at that point it's just start the wiring process. Get the wiring harness out, get the computer out, figure out where the computer's going to go, how the harness is going to lay out, and get that part really done. At which point I can put the new radiator in it. We have a nice radiator that's going to go in. This car is going to be all AN fittings. So I have a new water neck that's AN. There's an adapter for the top one that converts that to AN. So that'll all be AN. Most of the stuff that you see on this car, if it's a liquid line in any way, it's going to be AN. I do need to run another fuel supply, or return actually. So it's got the fuel line here. I need to mirror this to make another line that goes here to the back for the tank that has a return. So I might use that one as a return. It looks like it's a 3/8 line. Yeah, it is. So I should be fine. Either one of those will be fine. I do have the Holley fuel tank with the electric pump in it, and it's already set up for the pressure and return. I'm telling you, the level of just fun goes up so much with this car because I'm not fighting it. Like the Galaxy, I love this car. I really do. I love the Galaxy. However, finding parts for this car, making stuff work for that car is such a pain. This thing is such a joy. I can go online, I could buy anything for this. I could buy every single body panel for the entire car and build an entire ghost car, I mean, it's incredible the amount of parts and the stuff that you can actually buy for this thing. It makes the build so much more fun and so much more easy because I can literally buy everything. I could build a whole car from scratch. It's great. It's absolutely great. This is the exhaust that was in the car. Somebody did a fantastic job building this. Borla exhaust. On the back, they didn't weld it, which I love because I have those 3-inch collectors. I also have 3-inch collectors that I might put up here. I'm not sure. I have the set of hooker headers that are up there. You can see them up there on the rack. Those are going to go into it. In the back right here, what they did was they just used these clamps, which when I took them off, I noticed they were leaking. You can see the black. This is where the muffler stopped, and they were actually blowing exhaust out. So, I mean, these things work pretty good, but they're not foolproof. So, I'm going to put those 3-inch collectors, V-band clamps, 3-inch V-band clamps on here and on the back of those mufflers. And that's going to make it so I can drop this center section really simple. You guys know how much I love that about my Galaxy. And I definitely want to make this car have that same kind of ease of use you know, for this. Now the headers that were on the ZZ430 are obviously different than the LS3. So the collectors in the front there on the exhaust probably aren't going to work. I'm trying to remember what kind of headers I ordered for this car, if they were long tube or if they were short tube or mid tube, or I don't know what they were. So I need to pull those down and see what I got. Obviously, when the motor starts going in the car, I'm also going to be looking at those headers, because a lot of times you have to, you know, kind of wiggle the motor around and really kind of get those headers to fit that way. So I need to pay attention. All three things have to happen at the same time. Motor goes in, transmission goes in, headers go on. And so it's going to be a little bit, that's this weekend, is going to be feeling out all of those different aspects of the car and making sure I can get everything to fit. Like I said, Monday, at some point Monday, beginning of the day Monday, end of the day Monday, I don't know. But Monday is my goal, to have motor trans headers on this motor. And that way I can start wiring. Super, super excited to get into this car. It has some modern gauges in it right now. However, I ordered the Dakota Digital gauges for this car with a silver background. I also, this car, 68 was the first year for the center console in this car. This car didn't have it. I don't know if it came with it originally. Obviously, there's not much originality in this car left, but it doesn't matter because I'm putting the center console into the car. Again, you can buy everything for this car. So center console, order it, you know, easy. So I ordered the center console. I have all that pieces, the 4 gauge pack that goes at the front of it. Dakota Digital, they make the 4 gauges that go with it to complement the 2 that are up on the dashboard. I mean, this car is so much easier. I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm still a Ford guy. I'm still a Chevy guy. I'm still a Dodge guy. I love them all. I just wish there was more parts for some of the Fords because I do, you know, I love my Fords. But super excited to get into this car. I think you guys are going to love this. I've got to remember to keep filming. Like I said, I get super excited about this one. I jump into it and forget, oh man, dang, you know, I got to film. So I'm not going to forget you guys. I'm going to bring you in as much as I can, I promise. You're going to love this build. This car's going to be a lot of fun. And this is going to go to Power Tour, trying to get it to East Coast Power Tour. Right after this car, El Camino. You guys are going to love that one too. 396 with a Holley fuel injection, but it's not like the Sniper fuel injection. It's a multi-port. That one's going to be a ton of fun too. That car is beautiful. A couple pictures of it on my website, which is not very kept up. I know it's very rudimentary, but hey, you know, it's something I have there to kind of show you what I got going on in the shop. Anyways, enough of me talking. Let me jump into this car. I got to get that motor out, put it on the stand so we can start to get that thing going. I'm glad you guys are here. Super excited as always. All right, guys, hang on. I'll make sure I get you guys into some high-speed stuff and all kinds of stuff. I'm going to do a lot of video on this car. So, all right. All right, guys, we're back. Got the motor out of the car, as you can see. Really kind of just making good headway on this thing. Don't really want to do a lot of filming, removing the engine, that kind of stuff, because with this kind of car, it's not like you're just removing a motor. You're not just ripping something out. It's real thought out. You know, you got to be careful, you know, what you're doing. It's not just ripping a motor out. So it's a lot of moving real slow, which is real boring. So even in high speed, if I tried to high speed video, it'd probably come out as normal speed. Because that's just the nature of the game. It's a, you know, very expensive car, very expensive motor. You know, just taking our time with it and making sure that, you know, everything is coming out right. So you won't see me really doing any kind of that as far as motor, transmission, anything like that. It's just, there's too much involved, especially with this motor transmission setup. The motor actually has to go in, then the bell housing has to go on the back of the motor, and then you have to stab the transmission while feeding the throwout bearing through the input shaft. it's real, it's not easy. This is not an easy setup. So especially in this car, and the configuration that it was in with the motor as far back as it was extremely difficult to get the engine out. Motor was back way too far. It needs to move up about 1.5 inches. So that's what I'd like to get out of it. I don't know exactly how much I'll be able to get out of it, but I'm going to try and get out of it as much as I can. So basically at this point, the motor's chalked up here on the hoist, or not on the hoist, on the engine stand. And what I'm gonna do is change the intake manifold. So when I ordered this motor from Texas Speed, I asked for, the motor that I wanted, and then you have all these add-ons, stuff you can do to it. Intake manifold, oil pan, accessory drive kit, all that kind of stuff. I just picked whatever came with the motor, whatever was free. Didn't cost me any extra money on the engine, because I wasn't sure what I was going to keep, what I was going to change, that kind of stuff. So I knew the intake manifold I wanted to change. The LSX or whatever manifold. It's supposed to be the better manifold, but that's not the manifold I wanted to run. The oil pan, when I put it in the car, I think I was showing you guys how low it actually sat. So I have the new oil pan over there from Holley that's made for this engine. I don't know if it's specifically made for the Camaro, but it's going to swap in real well, because I did all the measurements and everything. Now, I haven't tried it. I just pulled all the measurements and ordered accordingly. So it's going to be interesting if it, if it don't fit, then I measured something wrong. So, but first off, we're going to change this manifold out. Let me show you what I got to replace it. So this is just your stock GM, comes on any Camaro or anything else. This is what you'd see. So this is what I got to replace it. Went to Holley and got their medium rise, I think this is what it's called. Oh no, this is the low ram modular intake manifold kit. So sure you guys have seen these before. This is the lower half of the manifold. And then what I did, just to kind of customize it a little bit, is I took the top of the manifold and sent it over to a machine shop and had them smooth it out and polish it. I think this is going to look awesome on this engine. It's going to fit the motor really well. Of course, you got your fuel rails and stuff right there. The injectors that came with the engine, I'm going to reuse, because that's the injectors that Texas Speed put in there. So I don't see needing to change the injectors. So yeah, I think that's really going to make this motor look the part as far as the top end goes. And then as far as the oil pan, so you can see how low that oil pan sits in the back, right? And in the car, it would sit so much farther down, like it was like 2 inches farther down than the cross brace, right? The cross member right there. Again, this suspension is awesome. I looked it up. It's made by Chassis Works. So this is a really nice subframe. So what I did was went to Holley, took all the measurements, went online to Holley, took all the measurements, and then ordered this. This is the pickup tube and all the parts and stuff that come with it. And then ordered this oil pan. So you can see, if I can get it out of the bag here, sorry. So you can see this oil pan is a lot different. Hang on a second, let me get you guys situated here. So you see how low that one sits, or how low that one sits versus the profile on this one is a lot higher. Now my measurements say that this will fit right underneath of that cross member. Let me get you guys back on the stand so I can kind of hold the two together so you can see it a little better. So there's quite a few different oil pans they make for this engine. Of course, you know, it's a Chevy. Everyone's swapping them into all kinds of stuff. So, but you can see yeah, you can see how much lower. Let me get you down a little bit lower so you got more of a up look at it. There you go. So that's about on the engine where it's going to sit, and you can see how much lower the hot rod is, what they call a hot rod oil pan. The hot rod oil pan is the one that's on there. This is made by Holley just for different applications. The one thing that I did want, Holley made one, I think was a little bit shaped differently right in here, but it wasn't available at the time that I ordered it. So I think it was, or maybe this was the low profile and they had one that was a little bit deeper to hold a little more oil. I can't remember, but I think this one's gonna do well. Fit on the car, and then that'll definitely suck this up away from the ground, because right now, I mean, you had this much of the oil pan sticking out, you know. If you had ran over anything on the highway, it just broke the oil pan right off this car. So need to get that changed. These are pretty cool, adjustable motor mounts to fit whatever application you got going on. Thought that's pretty neat. So it really kind of gives you that flexibility. I know a lot of you are probably saying, you know, like, well, you know, you want to move the engine 1.5 inches forward. How are you going to do that? Well, right there. That's how you do that. And then on the subframe underneath, for the trans cross member, it actually has 4 different holes. So you can have 2 holes back, or then the 2 holes that were more forward. For me, the ZZ430 with the Tremec 5-speed, they were in the rear holes. So I want to move this LS forward. So I would move to the other 2 forward holes, and then that would push this whole assembly forward. So it's going to work out well. Let me get that manifold installed on top of this, and then I'll bring you guys back in. It's getting toward the end of the day today. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to complete this or not, but my goal is to have this back in the car, hopefully the transmission, you know, stabbed onto the back of this thing and everything bolted down by the end of the day tomorrow. So today's Saturday, tomorrow will be Sunday, so Monday will come in and hopefully have everything in a good enough position. Now I'm going to have to put the transmission in and then mark where the shifter actually goes through the floor. It's going to move, of course, that much. However much forward I move the engine, it'll move. But I'm going to take a jigsaw and cut the floor, you know, oval the floor out, and then I'm basically going to take that piece that I just cut and flip that over to the back, weld it in, and that'll just basically move that piece, that hole that much more forward on the floor, and it'll still stay, you know, pretty nice. It's the plan anyways. So I'd like to be moving that hole for the shifter Monday, and then by the end of the day Monday, I want to have everything locked down in this. I want to have all the bolts torqued, the motor in place where it's going to be, and that's where it's going to live. The shifter coming up through the floor where it needs to come through the floor, all that kind of stuff. So that way I can jump right into wiring this thing. I do need to put the headers on. I'm going to get those down right now and see how those are going to fit, because as we put the motor in the car, like I was saying, I want to be able to kind of snake the headers up there, kind of do the motor, headers, transmission, everything all at the same time. That way when everything's locked down, there's no more having to move this motor around. So that's the plan. It's a lot at once, basically, and that's another reason why I'm just not going to really record it, because it's going to be a very long process, very slow, methodical, thinking it out. We spent a lot of time today just looking at the engine, looking at the car, going over stuff like this and seeing how it's going to fit. So I know you guys like watching people work on stuff, but this would be hours and hours and hours of us just talking about it and looking at it and then test fitting something and taking it off. This stuff doesn't really go like that, especially on a car like this. So, but let me get this changed out. I'll bring you guys back in after the manifold's changed, and we'll keep this process going. So, all right. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Oh man, getting old. Can't sit down like that anymore. Hey guys, sorry I had to bring you back in real quick. I just let you go, but I just kind of set the parts on this thing and stand back and looked at it and went, oh man, it looks so cool. If you're a car guy, which you are if you're watching this show, this is, you want the definition of a car guy's beauty, man. This is it. This is some cool stuff. So check this thing out. Let me get you in here. Look how cool this thing looks. Man, that really changes the engine, huh? It's going to flow better, obviously. I mean, you do it for looks, you do it for flow, you do it for the build. Man, that looks good. So nice. Those guys over at the polish shop did a really good job because if you know these manifolds, they're textured. And then right up here it says like Holly something or other. I can't remember what it says up there. But we polished all that off. Man, this looks good. Such a different looking engine now with that on there. So cool. So I just kind of test fit everything, just sat it on there. There's no gaskets, there's no bolts, there's no anything. Literally right after I talked to you guys, just sat it on there. So really, really cool. So now I'm going to go through the instructions and start putting it together. So when I get it all together and all the injectors in it and everything else, I'll bring you guys back in. But it just looked so cool. I had to show you that real quick. All right, guys, I'll be right back with you. All right, guys, welcome back. I've got the intake manifold torqued down, got the injectors in place. So this morning what I wanted to do was take the oil pan off, which it's off now. I'll flip it over and show you. And kind of get familiarized with some of the stuff that's on here and how I'm going to actually hook it up to the car. I spent I spent all morning and up until now, it's probably pushing on 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock. Looking up parts, ordering parts, put in a big order for AN fittings and looking at exactly how I'm going to do the fuel system on this. I had an idea on what I wanted to do with it, but I wanted to, you always question yourself, make sure you're thinking in the right way. Luckily for me, I have really good friends. Thank you, Jason, for all the help. And you bounce ideas off of people and your friends and kind of work it out that way. It always seems to work out pretty good. I'm pretty hard-headed. I like things my way. And I kind of, overbuild stuff as well. In trying to figure out the fuel system for this, I wanted to know what the injectors were. After a lot of research, found out that they're just stock GM LS3 fuel injectors, which the flow on these is 48 pounds an hour at 58 PSI, I think is what we determined. They're good up until I think Jason found 700 horsepower is what they're good up to. Then we determined exactly what engine this is because we ordered this a very long time ago. I thought this was the 600 horsepower version. This is actually the 570 horsepower version, so it's a little less than I thought. Not by much, 30 horsepower. But looking at the injectors, they're good for 600 horsepower. We're right at 570, 700 horsepower. We're right at 570. I felt like the duty cycle on these injectors would be a little bit high, and that we would benefit from a upgrade in the fuel injection. Since we're going to an upgraded intake manifold, I figured might as well see what Holley offers for upgraded fuel injectors. So I went with the upgraded fuel injectors. They flow twice as much, basically. So what that'll do is it'll actually take that duty cycle down out of the 85% to make that power, and it'll push it down into where the injector only has to work half as hard as it can work. To me, that you know, that seems like it'd be a lot less stress on the injectors, be a little bit more efficient. You know, so I went ahead and went that route. They weren't too expensive. For a full set, I think was like $400. So when you're talking about, you know, a motor that costs, you know, north of 20 grand, you know, 400 bucks isn't that bad. So, and then I also had to figure out fuel system, what I was going to do for the fuel system, how I was going to bring the pressure up there, regulate the pressure, how I was going to route everything. So this is my plan. My plan is to bring Dash 8 from the tank all the way up to this fuel rail. And so then it'll run down this fuel rail, come out of this fuel rail, loop around to the driver's side fuel rail, go down the fuel rail, come out, and then go into the regulator, which then will bypass the fuel in a Dash 6 all the way back to the tank. And the reason I did it in Dash 8, it is way overkill for this motor, but everything is set up for Dash 8. I could have dropped it down to a Dash 6, but everything Holly had, everything that was available for it, everything was in a Dash 6, or I'm sorry, Dash 8. So I figured, well, you know, it's overkill, but at the same time, if you think about it, there's two types of systems. There's a return system and a return-less system. The return-less system pushes the fuel up to the fuel rails, and then the fuel stays stagnant up on the rails until it's actually used. What that'll do is the pressure of the fuel sitting at, you know, 58 psi the entire time will create heat. Also, the fuel not moving through the system, it will actually draw heat in from the motor and cause an inefficiency just due to heat. So with a return system, the fuel is constantly being moved. Now, I'm moving way more fuel than it has to, but that's okay. I'm not using that fuel. That fuel is just recycled back down to the tank. And so you've got this constant flow of fuel, which is coming up to the motor from the tank, so you're getting this nice, cool fuel hitting the injectors all the time. So I went ahead and went that route. That's why I have it set up that way. You'll notice on the firewall of the car, there's actually two screws that before that held the coils. Well, now we don't need coils. So that's going to actually hold the fuel pressure regulator. It sits about here on the motor. Like I said, the Dash 8 will come up, hit the fuel rail, go over to this side, hit the pressure regulator. The other thing I did is I wanted to be able to monitor the fuel rails, and it was a simple, easy little adapter that you bolt onto here. That's basically Dash 8 to a Dash 8 female to a Dash 8 male, with a 1/8 inch NPT for a gauge. So I'll be able to monitor the fuel pressure on both the rails as well as the fuel pressure back here on the regulator. So if I set the fuel pressure on the regulator, I can see what it is on both of the rails. You know, I always go a little bit overboard on stuff, but at the same time, it gives you that tunability. You're able to see exactly what that rail actually has in it for fuel pressure. Now, I don't need to run two. I can just run one if I want, but for symmetry version, again, I'm going for looks on this motor as well as function. For symmetry, I thought that'd kind of look cool. I don't know, maybe I won't use it. Maybe I'll put one here and just have one on it. Maybe I'll put one there and one here for symmetry. Don't know. It wasn't that expensive for the extra fitting and pressure gauge, so that's what I went ahead and did. I do need to there's a lot of things to figure out whenever you're doing these types of swaps. I have there's a crossover right here on the cylinder heads for the coolant. I also have this, which I'm thinking is like a ventilation tube that used to go into the stock manifold right here. That's not there anymore. There's a couple ports back here on the back of the manifold that I can run. I can run a tube up underneath the manifold and plug into there. I also have these two fittings here on the valve covers that are threaded that I can run PCV off of. I'm not one of those people that would just put breathers I love having that the motor actually evacuating that crankcase pressure. It helps for a more efficient engine. It also reduces your chances of oil leakage from blowing past a gasket. So I still have a lot of that to figure out, but at least I've got the fuel system pretty figured out for this. And again, I wanted to take a lot of time to make sure that I was moving in the right direction, especially when you're ordering some of these fittings. A Dash 890 from Earl's is about $41. So you don't want to order more than you need. So this is all done, bolted down. I haven't bolted the top on it yet. As cool as it looks and as much as I want to see that beautiful top bolted on this engine, I haven't bolted it on here yet because I'm going to install it in the car first. I have chains and stuff that's going to go over top, and if any of that stuff touches that nicely polished upper intake manifold, it's going to, ruin my day basically. So I left that off for now. We went ahead and put cardboard over top of it to keep this nice and safe. It's like a big piece of masking tape. So now I'm into the oil pan. So I went ahead and removed the stock oil pan from the motor, and basically what they do on these is this pan gasket is still actually in pretty good shape. The rubber here, the gasket is like this aluminum with a silicone gasket. It's, if you notice right here where my thumb is, there's a rivet in it, and over here by the oil pump there's another rivet there. So they actually hold this to the oil pan. I suppose it makes it easy when you're when they're installing in the factory or whatever they're doing. I could have probably drilled those out and reused this. However, this motor is not easy to put in this car. It takes a lot of effort. So the last thing I wanted to do was use an old pan gasket and possibly have a leak after I fire this thing up. So I went ahead and ran down the street. The closest auto parts store to me is AutoZone. Luckily the kid in there had some car that he was doing an LS swap on. I didn't even have to tell him. I just told him I wanted an oil pan for an LS3. He goes in the back, pulls this out. Finally, I get a parts house where you can say stuff like that, and the guy knows just exactly what you're doing. So, I mean, that's typically, what you're going to find when you're doing these Chevrolets, especially LS3, that kind of stuff. Luckily, he was swapping an LS3 into like a Japanese car too. We were laughing because I'm like, man, my struggles are a lot less than what yours are. You have major fitment issue struggles. He's like, yeah, but it'll be super cool, and he's right. It will be super cool. So that's where we're at right now. I thought I'd bring you guys along for the oil pan, but I need you to give me a second because I need to get all my ducks in a row. I need to take a look at the instructions, see exactly what I need to remove, what I need to replace, how I need to put this thing back together, and then I bring you guys in. Maybe throw it into a little bit of high speed because I think me talking a lot in this video is making this video run a little long. So I think after we get the oil pan mounted up on this engine, just based on the video I have, that'll probably be it. But we'll see what happens when I get the oil pan on and we see where we end up. But give me a second. Let me dip into that, see what it takes, and then I'll be right back with you guys. Oh man, time to do some reading. All right, guys, got the pickup tube off. And they wanted you to test fit the new oil pan, but I'm already starting to see issues here. So putting the oil pan on, sits fine in the back, of course. but the front is hitting that windage tray. Let me show you. I mean, I'm sure you can probably see what I'm talking about, but let me just get you down here closer. You can see I can put my finger in the gap. So, you know, that windage tray that's in there is pretty tall. And really, the whole oil pan, oh no, the back, looks like the back sits down. Just the front that's sitting up. So, yeah, that's an issue. Let me do some more reading, you know. Doing this stuff, that's what it's about. That's what takes so long, is you know, measure or do all this stuff, order a part that should fit the engine, you know. This here's the instructions of the, you know, from the oil pan. And I haven't read through it yet. I just kind of pulled you guys in because, you know, this is the struggles that you have. So, Holley oil pan, LS retrofit oil pan, LS engine retrofit, range of popular GM muscle classic car and truck chassis. So one of the things it did come with is it comes with this part of the kit. Oh, making a mess. Okay. What happens when you don't clean up your tools? You gotta put your toys away, kids. So it looks to me like this is a new windage tray, I think. But I don't know because I haven't read the instructions. But I wanted to bring you guys in for the drama. You know, that's it's just what you get when you're working on this stuff, you know. Be at home and in your driveway, or you know, in a shop, trying to get this done. Doesn't matter, you know. Issues are issues, and struggles are struggles. Either way around. So let me do some more reading. And oh no, that this definitely goes down here. Yeah, that is definitely not part of that windage tray, at least, because that fits in there. So let me do some more reading, and then I hope that oil pan will work with this motor. You know, I really do, because if you look here, let me get you over here. If you look here, you see the windage tray, that chunk of metal right there, that's the crankshaft. And so there is really not much room. If I had to guess, I would say by cutting that windage tray in this area, you would gain maybe a half an inch, which is about what we need to make that fit. You know? Sorry, my mic is getting messed up. That's about what that's off. Is about, oh, there we go. It's off about half an inch. I don't know much in there. So, all right, let me get hooked on phonics, and I'll be right back with you guys. All right, guys. Well, it looks like reading through this, there's two. This covers two types of oil pans: the 302-1 and the 302-2. This is the 302-2. Yeah, 302-2. And the 302-2 is basically the front part of the oil pan right here is more shallow. Basically, it's to fit F-body Chevrolets with the that you've done a conversion for rack and pinion steering, which this car has. One of the reasons why I bought the 302-2. I think the 302-1 would actually work on this car because remember that's a chassis works front end, and the way the amount of room that I had when I was ordering this oil pan, it was there. It was really close, but it was there. But unfortunately, the 302-1 was not in stock. They did have the 302-2, which was recommended for this application. That's why I bought it. Reading through the instructions, it looks like what they want you to do is actually remove the first quarter of the windage tray. So before I go cutting up the windage tray, and or it also says there's a, it's always the wording of the instructions. Windage tray installation and modification. Modifications made for the pickup tube. If you're going to use the windage tray, they want you to trim this side of it actually right here, so that the pickup tube, because the pickup tube's real tight in here, so they want you to trim it over here. But if you're cutting that quarter off, then they say it's fine. F-body windage tray, GM part number. Due to the design of the Holley oil pump pickup screen, a modification to the windage tray must be made. A cut to provide clearance for the pickup tube must be made as shown in Figure 6. This corner right here cut off. Full-length windage tray may be used if it is modified to remove the front quarter of the tray. Yeah, see, the full-length windage tray may be used if it is modified to remove the front quarter of the tray, and the required cut is made to provide clearance to the pickup tube. I mean, if you're removing the front quarter of the tray, you don't have to worry about that corner anymore. And I am reading it right. Remove the front quarter of the tray, not corner, quarter of the tray. You made private clearance, blah, blah, blah. A very careful check should be made to ensure that the oil pickup tube has clearance to the windage tray, and that the oil pickup tube mounting bracket seats down properly on the mounting stud and the windage tray without interference, which it does because it was already in there, so I'm not going to worry about none of that. So I figured what I would do is remove the windage tray and then see if the oil pan fits. And if it fits, then I know, okay, just, lob that front quarter off, bolt this thing back down, and it should fit. Man, let me get you in here because it's fun to see expensive custom-built engines, Let me see where they ground the crank. That's pretty cool. What a neat looking motor. Look at those connecting rods. Things look beefy. This thing is cool. So this, I remember now when I ordered this engine, the owner didn't want me to go crazy, because just like most things I do go all the way. He's like, I don't want 1,000 horsepower, because he knows the way I would have built it. It would have been, busting the 9-inch out of the back and twisting it up into a pretzel with twin turbos hanging off of it and all kinds of crap. I honestly wouldn't have went that far. I'm obviously being a little dramatic, but I think I would have went for the 6 or maybe even 700 horsepower option. Just makes it that much more fun. Just because the horsepower is there, I don't mean you got to use it, but of course, got to use that foot wisely, you know. So, all right, enough all that. This motor does make good power. 570 is no slouch. So let's see if this oil pan drops down now. Now we do have a gasket too, remember. So we have the thickness of the gasket that we're still not accounting for. So if this fits down on there and doesn't have any issues as far as that goes, I need to remember to grab this thing from the side because I can't grab it from the back. Yeah. That goes down on there nicely. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna have to do, I guess. I don't like cutting things apart. But I mean, honestly, for as low as this is here, that's the oil pan is its own windage tray at that point. So there's no need to stress over that part of it. So now it's just a matter of identifying how much of that windage tray I need to cut back. So at least I know this fits, and now you can kind of see why, because that cross member sits pretty much right in here, and they're expecting the steering to be right here, that rack and pinion. And so if you look on the car, that's exactly where it fits. See, I don't know if you can quite see the depth here, but that cross member is quite a bit lower than the power steering gear, than the rack and pinion. That's up quite a bit more. So that was the reason for this bump here, was to clearance that. I remember, it's been a while. All of this stuff with this engine has been quite a while since I really, that goes in there. Since I really dealt with any of this, because I ordered a lot of this stuff. I mean, the engine is, this thing might be going on 2 years old now here in the shop. It's been in the car for almost a year maybe. I don't know. So all of this stuff, there's a lot of projects that go on, a lot of things happen. I think at one point we had over 40 cars in here. I had them backed up in the showroom because there was no desks and stuff in there. I had a showroom completely full of cars. I had cars all the way up to the door, even in the driveway right here. So, it was buying and selling a lot. It was doing a lot of stuff. And so we've reduced the collection down to a lot of just the stuff that is fun, at least fun to me. So this car kind of got worked on, and then it got put on the side, worked on and put on the side. Luckily, the good friend of mine, Jason, when he worked here, he took very good record of what he bought and what he bought for the car, and listed it all out. So at least I can see, okay, this is what I should have somewhere in this mess. Stuff like this I ordered, 6 months ago maybe, in preparation for this. So these parts have been around for a while, and trying to remember where I was and everything is kind of hard to do. So, but that's not going to happen with this car. This car's getting done this time. We're staying in it. We're staying focused, and we're going to take this to the Power Tour this year. So I'm glad this fits. Let me get this thing, figure out how to modify that windage tray. We'll get this thing on there. We'll get it bolted down, and we'll call that good, So give me a couple minutes. Let me figure out how to cut that windage tray. I'll get that thing cut up, cleaned up. I'll clean up the inside of this. I'll get the gasket out, and then I'll bring you guys back in. We'll put the windage tray in. We'll put the oil pump pickup tube in. We'll put that little deflector pan up in here, and get this thing bolted down and flip it over and get it ready tomorrow to drop back into the car. Now it's Sunday today, and my goal, I really wanted to be able to put the motor in the car, put the transmission back in the car, and modify the floor for the move of the engine on the shifter by the end of the day tomorrow. I might be a little bit off on that, but I think I can get the motor back in the car and get the transmission back in the car. But I also, at the same time, I'm thinking about what needs to happen in the car. And these headers need to go in as well. So these are mid-tube hooker headers. Of course, ceramic coated and all of that craziness. But like I was saying before, when I was doing the exhaust on my Galaxy, I purchased these V-band clamps. And so these I'm going to weld to the end of that pipe right there, and then modify the front of this exhaust kind of similar to what I did on my Galaxy. I'm going to do a lot better job because this is beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous exhaust. And then I'm going to modify that with the TIG welder and, you know, dropping dimes. Make it really nice. Nice and straight, nice and clean, nice and beautiful. All done in stainless. I do need to order some 3-inch pipe and 2 more 3-inch V-band clamps because I'm going to V-band up here, and I'm also going to V-band on the other side of those Borla mufflers. That way that center section can come down. Obviously it can come down now. We're looking at it down. But what they had is they had this clampy like sleeve doohickey thing that was, honestly, it was leaking. So this doesn't leak, and it's really easy to work with, as you saw in my car. So that's what I'm going to do. Some of this stuff is going to take up a little bit of time, is what I'm saying. So, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to need to drop the motor, line up the headers, stab the transmission at the same time. So I need to get these things lined up and ready to go. I'm also thinking about now, I didn't get any gaskets. So I need to get some gaskets for this. I also need to get some bolts. I'm probably going to do the same thing on this, do those stage 8 header bolts so that they can't back out, so I don't have any problems with them. I don't have to worry about collectors because I'm using V-band. So a couple more things I forgot. Exhaust gaskets and bolts. So I got to get to that. But let me figure out how to modify this windage tray, as I've been saying for the last 15 minutes of me talking about all kinds of craziness. And then I'll bring you guys back in, and let's get this thing bolted on the engine, and then let's go home. I'm getting tired. It's Sunday. All right, guys, give me a couple minutes. All right, guys, I got windage tray modified. I went ahead and read over those instructions again. And basically what they wanted you to do is they wanted you to take off that forward quarter, but they also wanted you to clearance over here, because I was reading, why clearance over there, Anyways, I had mixed up the instructions, but yeah. So I clearanced over here, modified that. I put the pan on it just to keep the engine clean. So let's remove the pan and see if this fits. I haven't tried to fit it yet. I just got done washing this with soap and water, of course. Let me pull the dipstick down. There we go. Wash this with soap and water to make sure that there's no grinder dust on it or anything like that. So there we go, around that dipstick tube, and that's it sitting in there. So the other thing I want to do is I want to grab, let me see what you can see. Let me tilt you over here a little bit more so you can kind of see. I got my stack of mess over on this side. So I want to grab this this pickup tube and lay that in place as well to see how it fits. And then lastly, I also want to pull that gasket out of the box, and I'm going to set that in there too, because that is another shim point. So let me get a little assembly lube for this. I've got some lube over here that I use that came with the if I can find it. That came with the that new distributor that went in the 7-liter. I was just using it. Oh, there it is. So it's like Lucas Racing Performance Gear, break-in, lubricant, just a, sticky lubricant. Great for O-rings and that kind of stuff. So I saved it after I lubed up the gear on that MSD and stuck it in the 7-liter, because this stuff's great for all kinds of stuff. Now it's already got some grease in there, so I don't need to lube that side of it. So I'm not going to bolt any of this stuff down. I just want to, well, that's strange. Did I trim the wrong side? I did. I thought I read that right. Did I not read it right? We got the dipstick in the wrong place. I read it right. So this is what I was reading. I'm looking at it as this is down. Oh, it's not. This is the underside view of it. This would be looking at it like this. So I trimmed this side of it. I'm seeing it now because of the orientation of the spot here for the dipstick tube to come through. Why would they? That's weird. I don't know. If I was writing the instructions on this, I would write it in the, draw the picture in the same way that you're viewing it. So they're viewing it from underneath, basically. So this drawing sits like this, which would mean that notch out is on this side of the engine, not on the other side of the engine. The notch out's not going to cause any concern of any type. It's fine. Doesn't matter. But it's a little frustrating because that just seems like a bad way to do that image. And they don't reference left, right, driver, passenger. They don't do any of that. So, well, let's fit it without the pickup tube for right now, at least. Let me show you what it looks like on the engine. So that's that windage tray. Obviously before we had all the way up to here covered with the windage tray, cut it back to make room for that oil pan. This is that notch out, because that's what it looked like it was supposed to be. This is actually supposed to be on this side. So honestly, this isn't going to cause any concern. There's still plenty of material around this bolting location. It's really not going to do anything. So it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, no big deal. It'll just provide a little bit of drain back in that area. So I need to notch this out to the same as this. No big deal there. So I made sure all these edges were nice and smooth. So you want them smooth because anything that can slow down the flow of the oil will inhibit the oil from getting back to the oil pump as quickly as possible. Now, what a windage tray does, in case you don't know, is it keeps the oil that's built up in the oil pan away from the rotating assembly, so that this is not coming down and splashing in that oil. That splashing motion is friction, which will reduce power. So windage trays prevent that crank from splashing in the oil, keeps the oil on this side. Obviously they have got cuts to allow the oil to drain back as it comes out of the bearings and all that kind of stuff. So cutting it here and notching it out on this side is not going to cause a problem. It's just frustrating that I guess I should have paid more attention. You know, what are you going to do? Okay, sorry. Let's get back to fitting the oil pan. Now I don't have, just want to take a quick check, make sure there's nothing in there. I don't have the gasket on, but that's okay. Yeah, well, it's nice. It sits down nice and flat. It's not teetering on anything. I don't feel any binding. It's loose, so you're going to hear a little bit of noise. So that windage tray is loose as well. So, but I don't hear it moving or hitting that windage tray. You're hearing this here in the back as I move it around. But so we do have the thickness of this gasket that's going to go in there. Let me get this out of there. It's going to go in there and supply that much more of a shim on the to the pan to the engine block. So we've got, you know, that much thickness that we're about ready to add to it. So I'm not even going to drop this on there. We know it fits. We know it's fine. Give me a second. Let me modify the other side of that windage tray, and then we'll go ahead and drop the pickup tube in, make sure everything fits right. We'll finish this thing up. I got to clean the surface of the engine block, put a little silicone in the corners. Then we'll torque this thing down after I scrub it down with some soap and water and make sure that there's no contaminant and all of that. So give me a minute and I'll be right back with you guys. All right, guys, we're back. Got the oil pan back on the car. I cheated a little bit. I'm running out of time. I promised my wife I'd be home at 6 o'clock, and now it's about 10 to 6, and it takes me about 15 minutes to get home. So I'm going to be home a little bit late, but I wanted to show you guys where we're at, and you know, just kind of let you know what's going on here. So got the oil pan on, the gasket's in here, everything's sitting nice and pretty. Everything fits real well, no problems with anything. Let me pull this off so you can see the inside. So I got everything bolted down. Like I said, I'm running out of time, and stopping and videoing was taking a lot of time. So I just went ahead and bolted everything down. I modified the windage tray. I even had to modify the pickup tube bracket here because this motor does have ARP studs in it. And the studs were just a little bit larger than the hole that they put for the pickup tube. No big deal. Just, you know, I used a stepper bit and stepped it up one size and fits perfect now. Made sure I washed everything down, of course, to get rid of any grinder or dust or dirt or anything like that. Just laid the gasket in here. I still need to go back and trim the silicone and put new silicone, drop the new gasket, and then of course wash I'm gonna scrub the oil pan down with soap and water. I'll probably do that before I leave. That way Monday when I come in, which is tomorrow, Monday when I come in, I can go ahead and dab the silicone, put the oil pan on the engine, bolt it down, and be done with this. So let me get you in here so you can see what's going on. It's, you know, it's basically what we've been looking at, except for now it's just kind of finished. So you can see that pickup tube as it goes around, you know, where I trimmed out right there. Now it is trimmed out on this side. Doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt anything. So, and then these are 106 inch-pounds. These are 18 foot-pounds. Of course, that's with the stock hardware. Of course, this is upgraded to ARP. No big deal. When I took them off, that's about what they felt like. This, of course, got a new O-ring. That's really it for this. There's not much to it. So, like I said, I'll get that silicone cleaned up, and I'll get that oil pan back on the car tomorrow. So, and then tomorrow we can put the motor in the car and everything else. Doing a motor like this in a project like this, it's real hard to do any kind of fast motion. It takes a lot sorry, I thought the camera just turned off. It takes a lot of, you know, going back and forth, stopping, starting, modifying, stopping to think about how you're going to actually, you know, accomplish the goal that you're working on. So doing that fast motion on, at least on this kind of car, is not something that I can make work because it takes a lot of time to do some of these things because it is put it on, take it off, put it in, take it off, modify it. So stopping and starting at those key points so I can show you kind of where we're at. It's about the most I can do. Now, if you got any suggestions on how you think I could film this a little bit better, throw in the comments and I'll do my best to accommodate. But that's going to do it for this episode. I keep forgetting that you guys haven't even, you don't know anything about what's going on yet. I want to get this episode out. I'm super excited about this car, and I know you guys are going to be too. So I'm going to get you guys hyped up about this project as well. So I'm going to stop this episode here. I'm going to go home and edit this tonight and get this out to you so that tonight or Monday you can watch this episode and then get into the excitement that I feel for this '68 Camaro. This is this is what's going around. A lot of people are doing these LS swaps, and this is real modern. So I'm hoping this is going to generate a lot of action on my channel and gain a lot of viewers because this is fun. I'm having such a fun time. I'm really struggling to remember to keep filming because I am having so much fun with this car that I remember I gotta film this stuff too. So, but really that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you guys all for watching. Thank you for your love and support. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. Click that bell notification because from here on out, it's going to be a lot of the Camaro, so don't miss any of those videos when they first come out. Really, that's going to do it for this episode. I'm going to go home, edit this, and get this out. So, as always, until next time, guys.